Hello, this is Heather Hoffman, and I'm back with one more alcohol ink technique to share with you. This time I'm also using the alcohol lift ink, but in a different way to do some stenciling. I've already created an alcohol background using 3 colors of alcohol ink. I used Flamingo, Sunset Orange, and Watermelon, and I did it on Yupo paper. Again, as with the other alcohol lift ink, the Yupo paper is extremely important. Don't just use alcohol ink cardstock or anything. It has to be the Yupo paper for this technique to work. And I've got just a simple stencil from Simon Says Stamp with a bunch of little tiny hearts on it. And I'm lining up my stencil where I want it, and then just from the reverse side, I'm using a tiny bit of Post-it tape to hold it in place just so it doesn't slip while I'm doing my stenciling. That'll keep it held in place but not mess up the front of my image at all. Now I used the alcohol lift ink one other time. This time I'm going to use the re-inker. You could probably do this just by dipping into the ink pad as well, but the re-inker works really well. And I'm using a foam blender, and you really hardly need any of the refill ink for this. In fact, if you do too much, I almost even still did a little too much because some of it kind of bled beneath the stencil, and some of my hearts weren't as clear and perfect as I would have liked. And I think even in hindsight, I think I would just kind of dab the lift ink on and maybe not rub as firmly as I did, because I think some of that helped push it under the stencil. And I think if you dabbed it on and then lifted it and blotted it off with a clean paper towel a couple times and just rubbed the excess off, that would probably work even better. But you can see what I'm doing on there is I'm just blending that lift ink, and I'm kind of using it to lift off the color of those spots in the stencil. And you can see how as I rub over it a little bit, those places where the hearts are turning white. And once I peel the stencil off, you'll be able to see how that has lifted the ink off. It's kind of just a fun, it's almost like a reverse stenciling technique. You've created the alcohol background, and then you're lifting off the ink with the stencil instead of filling it in with embossing paste or anything like that. It's just kind of a fun, different way to use your alcohol inks and your lift ink. Now watch me peel this off. See, isn't that fun? And I don't know if you can see on there, like I said, a couple of the spots where maybe the hearts aren't as clear and perfect as I wanted, but it still worked pretty well. So just know a little goes a long ways. So if you use the refill, or if you decide not to use the refill and just dab your sponge dabber or anything into your ink, the alcohol lift ink pad, that would work quite well also. And just to be safe, I did grab a piece of paper towel and kind of used it to blot off any extra of that lift ink that might be on there, because if that smudges, it'll lift the ink in another spot and you'll end up with ink coming off of places that you don't want it to. All right, once I finished that, I used the cute baby bear hugs. It's the newest March 2019 sentiment kit. And I've already just stamped and fussy cut out the little bear and heat embossed a simple sentiment on a strip of black cardstock to attach on to complete my simple card. I hope you've enjoyed playing with alcohol inks, and I hope this one last technique is a fun new idea for you to try. Thanks so much for coming by. Have a wonderful day.